So I wanted to thank everybody for joining today. As a reminder, today is focused on strategies around adopting Microsoft Fabric. Before we get started, though, just a few housekeeping items. So everybody's going to receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the recording. It'll also contain an overview of AVASOFT's capabilities, as well as a PDF one-pager with some information on our offerings that directly relate to today's content. In order to keep today as collaborative as possible, please make sure to use the chat or the QA to ask questions. We have people moderating, so we will make sure to get answers as quickly as possible. Some we might answer in the chat, others we may reserve towards the end to read out to the presenters, especially if they might have a slightly more complex answer. And as a final item, if you find today's content helpful, make sure to check out our other webinars to get access to all the other great content that we have going on this year. So with that, our presenter today from the AVASOFT side is Nandini, who is one of the leaders in AVASOFT's data science practice. And as promised, we have a special guest, Prashant Attri, who is a partner technical advisor and a strategic advisor that we work with very closely, who focuses very heavily on the Microsoft data side. So I'm going to hand it off to our presenters today to get started. Thanks again, everybody. Take it away.
Hi everyone. So first we'll start off with a quick introduction about AVASOFT. So AVASOFT is a globally recognized Microsoft managed solutions partner, and we have over 15 years of experience in the industry. We have over a team of 1,500 plus members worldwide, and we are primarily located in USA, Canada, India, and Ireland. So in today's session, we'll start by discussing the challenges organizations are facing right now that is stopping them from evolving into their next step. Next, we'll explore how Microsoft Fabric can address these challenges. We'll then discuss the importance of real time intelligence and how we can make our decisions based on real time insights. Following that, we'll discuss how to assess our readiness for adopting Microsoft Fabric, and we'll outline our solution and tactical plan based on this assessment. Finally, we'll establish a process for continuous review and improvement so we have a successful adoption in place. Over to you, Prashant.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chuck and Nandini. Great start, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. So, and I think in today's call, we're going to talk about the overall data estate transformations and data strategy. So, let's dive into the this kind of when you are going through this typical kind of a data analytics journey, right? When you start this data analytics ecosystem, kind of think about the overall data foundation or data strategy. Let's walk through a couple of team structure first of all, right? So within enterprise, kind of a small, medium, large, different kind of a segment or different set of customers, right? They have a different kind of a business area kind of a teams, right? And along with that, they have a centralized kind of a data platform team. But when you start kind of solving a particular business problem, right? In that analytics ecosystem, you have a different technical teams, right? And you go through like to solve that particular problem, you go through different kind of a different products and all the products coming from different vendors. And as soon as you start kind of implementing those products coming from different vendors, every products or technology stack, they have their own kind of a metadata system, or they have their own security, right? And they have their own governance, right? So most of the time you are spending in terms of integrating this tool set, right? Or kind of stitching these components together, right? And our goal is to help domain team or kind of a business team to kind of drive the value, creating more and more kind of a data products in those areas, rather than kind of integrating kind of these products or kind of ecosystem, right? So because the other thing is the not only just stitching this together, that's one of the thing, but when you think about the costing aspect. So for example, like when you allocate some resources or compute to one set of kind of a product, right? And if that's not being used, you are not sharing with other kind of products because the products kind of it's from a different vendor. So you are not using those kind of a costing model as a effective way. That's one of the things. So when you run into this kind of fragmented architecture and trying to kind of solve this as a unified way, that's where kind of a Microsoft Fabric comes in actually. Right. Okay. So these are the typical problem statement when we talk to all the CDOs and kind of data leaders, right? What are the typical challenges for kind of end-to-end data kind of getting the value out of your data. So the very first thing we notice is still I see a lot of customers still using the data in SharePoint or spreadsheet, right? And like whenever the business units start kind of solving a particular problem, right, they start onboarding the data in a kind of a specific within that team or within that department, right? And that data is not being kind of shared with anybody within the other set of business units or organization, right? And when some other department needs kind of a data, they again start the similar workflow. So you end up with a lot of kind of a data duplication. And then at some point, the data collaborations or data sharing is not happening. And you are doing a lot of data copying exercise and then, ETL and a lot of stuff, right? So that's the very first problem statement we really observe across all the landscape of customers, right? And in addition to that, I think the governance and security, those are the major challenges. Nowadays, I think every organizations, every industry, all of them kind of, exploring the AI transformations, right? So when they go through these AI transformations or, the data kind of a data estate transformations, governance and security playing a really key role kind of moving towards your next phase, right? And when you think about all of these challenges, right, one thing is the technology alone cannot do all magic, right? So how we can solve this in terms of organizational kind of a culture management or change management, that's one of the area. The other thing is kind of having the right ecosystem in terms of unified architecture where you're not spending too much time in terms of stitching these components together in those areas, right? So those are the typical kind of a, based on our discussion with all the CTOs and data leaders, we have kind of seen these challenges. Yeah, next slide, please. So let's talk about this, the data culture or foundation first, right? And I think I'll give you the real world example based on my experience. The very first thing, when you start this data strategy or foundation, the executive support is very key, right? Who is the sponsor, right? Basically within that organization. You can do like a top down or bottom up approach, right? Based on specific to this executive support, right? Meaning you start with the CDOs, CIOs, and CTOs and align with them in terms of overall strategy, right? They lay the foundation and you do a lot of brainstorming with them, right? So that's the top down, right? The other thing is sometimes based on the organization size, what you're going to do is like, start with the particular business unit, right? So you start with one department or one business unit. You come up with that kind of ideas, start implementing, see the success, and then replicate to other business units, right? So it depends on the type of organization, and you take like a one of the approach, like a kind of whatever top down or bottom up, right? That's one of the thing on the executive support. Now the other thing is uh, this data literacy, data democratization, and data discovery. Those are the major kind of a pillar when you go through this strategy. Whenever I had a lot of discussion with CDOs specifically, right, I think most of the challenges are around the awareness or education within the other business units. So data literacy, organization change management, right? Those are the areas you will focus to increase more and more awareness within your other business units or within the organization, right? Now, now we are talking about data democratization, meaning we want to kind of provide the tools and data in the hands of business user, right? So not only just a kind of a particular business user or kind of a particular department. Our goal is to, within the entire organization, every employee, whenever they need data to solve some business problem, they should have all the right tools and the data both. Now, typically, personally, I have kind of interviewed many customers and a lot of challenges around the data access management, right? Typically, like traditionally, they use ticketing system to kind of give access to the data. Now it's shifting towards like, self-service data access management, right? And I have seen a lot of customers optimizing their business processes to do this end-to-end self-service data access management, meaning, for example, like they create a data marketplace kind of a culture, or they create a self-service data access policy kind of a culture where kind of a data order service kind of a thing, right? So when you doing shopping and you're ordering something in the cart, right? It's the same kind of experience, meaning like you are ordering the data, right? And it's not limited to a particular business department. Anyone within the organization should be able to request the data. And as soon as they request access to the data, it shouldn't be a longer kind of SLAs or cycle time, but otherwise it's going to impact your end-to-end kind of a business analysis, right? So those are the key areas you will focus part of your data democratization strategy. And the other area is the data discovery, meaning, right, like do you have a really centralized hub where business user can search the data, right? Now, the thing is, in all of this, like data literacy, data democratization, and data discovery, we have a different set of maturity assessment, right? And partners like AVASOFT really do a good job in terms of like, let's say if customer kind of, when you start your journey, right, in terms of each pillar, they go through the different assessment in literacy or democratization or discovery, and they figure out like, you are at a level 100, how can we reach from level 100 to level 500, right? So those are the areas, if you focus, you will build your strong kind of a foundation. So now here is the another kind of a end-to-end kind of a data estate transformation, right? So when you go through this journey, here is the kind of a framework or approach for you, right? Definitely you can kind of a customize based on the industry segment or size of the organization. But the high-level framework or approach look like the very first thing, you really need to have a regular kind of a, ongoing connection or kind of a, show the broader vision to your business or kind of a data stewards, right? Because that will play a key role when you start your MVP or implementation, right? Now, when you talk to the business value, because I used to sit down with them, like most of the CDOs or data leaders, they will come up with the high level kind of a strategy. Like, for example, the real world example, right? Like, let's say we want to focus more on the sensitive data detection, right? Or sometimes organizations, they feel like, hey, we have data all over, but we don't know what data do I have really and where it exactly it's stored. So there are a lot of things like initially they recognize, and you should have a regular, whatever goals you define part of your roadmap, right? That roadmap should be aligned to your business kind of a value, right? So those are the couple of example I told you about sensitive data detection or kind of inventory of your all of your data, right? Because once you do inventory, then you can start protecting it or take next action to it, right? Maybe AI transformation is your another goal, right? Like, hey, your organization is getting ready for AI transformation, right? Sometimes organization, they feel like we don't know what data to collect. I talk to a lot of industry expert in manufacturing. Sometimes what I'm observing is like from a manufacturing or other industry aspect, sometimes they don't know what data to collect, or sometimes even though they are collecting a lot of data, but they are not using kind of making use out of it, right? So these are the typical problem statement. And when you start with that data estate transformation, you lay out the transformation strategy and the roadmap goals, but talk to the business leader like, hey, here is the broader vision. And here is how, when you go through this data estate transformation, this is what it's going to look like. And this is what's the business value out of it, right? The next step, like you really lay out your current data estate, like you lay out end to end, like, hey, from source to target, like from left to right, what are your key data sources, whether it's kind of whatever Salesforce, SAP, whatever data sources you have. And then what will be your target data sources in terms of the data estate transformation, right? And then once you have, and when you are on the step 2, you really need to consider whatever the roadmap you design on step 1, right? Because whatever roadmap you design on step 1, that will help you to prioritize in step 2, right? So that's how you're going to kind of link your proposed data estate with your business goals, actually, right? And sometimes I have seen that like most of the enterprise customers, they have a architecture review board or some sort of kind of AI council or some sort of forum where kind of they discuss this alignment regularly, not only within the data platform team who provides the platform, but also involve the application architects or business area architects. So they involve everybody, right, in that kind of a feedback loop process, and they do that alignment very kind of effectively. And the third pillar here, like definitely nowadays, if you look at any technology, for example, AI agents coming up, right, and co-pilots in a lot of areas, I think the one thing is very key, like the restructuring your team, right? Basically, cross-functional subject matter expertise, right? That's very key because most of the technology or tools or the concepts, they span across the cross solutions, right? So definitely, you need some sort, like definitely when you go through these data estate transformations, you define the roles and responsibility in terms of data scientists, data engineers, and analyst and everything. But at the same time, definitely you need domain expert, right, who are very close to the particular business industry or that domain. Along with domain expert, you're going to figure out like data stewards, data ownership. So you figure out all of these cross-functional kind of SMEs to drive this kind of end-to-end initiatives, because they are the one going to drive end-to-end these estate transformations. Now, here is the data-driven culture, right? Like most of the companies, right, trying to be data-driven, right? And clearly you can see based on a lot of surveys, like as soon as they start taking decisions, because most of the companies, sometimes they are not taking decisions based on the real data, right? They are maybe based on their experience or some one way or other. But as soon as they start capturing the data right way and taking decisions based on the data, they realize a lot of kind of a revenue and other kind of a customer satisfaction, right? So we have seen these surveys many times, right? Like how data-driven culture helps. It's not about just a standardization or kind of aligning your business strategy, but in general, it's a foundation that help you from AI transformations in other areas too, right? So it will help you get ready, like because we have a lot of readiness assessment, and I think AVASOFT again doing a lot of readiness assessment. It could be Microsoft Fabric, it could be Copilots, right? So a lot of areas you will continue to do those assessments, figure out whether your end-to-end estate is really ready for the next wave of innovation. So, yeah. And while I'm presenting, if you have any thoughts, feedback, feel free to kind of type in the chat, right? We'll continue to monitor and respond on that. So this is the another one, like just kind of a realistic data state in terms of organization maturity, right? So now you might have heard about a lot of operating models, right? One thing is the centralized operating model, then decentralized, and then federated kind of operating model, right? Now, every organization, it depends on the size and a lot of maturity in other areas, right? So you figure out like, hey, customer starts with the centralized, most of the customers, like you start with the centralized ecosystem. And then because of some business agility or other kind of autonomy or flexibility problem, sometimes they transition towards decentralized, right? Now, decentralized, again, having its own pros and cons. And then I just want to share our internal kind of a Microsoft gone through this three layer of transformations, like the centralized, decentralized, and the federated. And we clearly see, based on the CDO's feedback and other areas, internally we have gone through a lot of transformation, gone through all these three different layers, right? Like operating model, and we clearly see federated, the model that's definitely going to help business drive a lot of kind of a agility, at the same time gives a lot of controls to the domain team, right, when they are doing kind of a solving a particular business problem, right? So in that federated model, right, it's not an overnight thing. Definitely you will start your journey and slowly you will kind of be mature in that area. Like a smaller companies, maybe they will not adopt or end-to-end federation. Maybe it's just a partial because of the they will not realize end-to-end kind of a benefit out of it, right? So now when we talk about enterprise or medium to large organizations, definitely we are seeing kind of traction or kind of adoption going towards federation, right? So again, think about the what's the right kind of operating model for your organization. when you go through this kind of a data estate transformation. Now, I think all the industries, like as we talked about, going through the AI transformation, right? But how do you start? Like where to start this transformation, right? The thing is, the very first thing is we talked about all that challenges like silos and a lot of other things, right? How do we kind of unify all the data in a kind of one kind of a hub, right? That's the very first step you're going to think about when you think about this AI transformation, right? So as soon as you have your data in a unified kind of ecosystem, right? The next step will be, like most of the data engineers, data scientists, they all spend a lot of time on prepping or cleaning your data, right? So when you think about kind of prepping and cleaning and kind of getting your data ready, that's your step two, uh, you know, uh, before you even start building your LLM applications. Because whenever you use any AI technology or LLM, uh, we all know like AI is as good as kind of your data foundation, right? So the idea here is as soon as the data engineers, data scientists spending a lot of time prepping and cleaning the data and getting this data ready for kind of your next set of AI applications, right? And once you have that, right, then the next phase is like you really build kind of a AI applications or LLM or copilots, AI agents, whatever you name it, right? All of that thing will start after you have the right data and your environment is ready. Now, one of the couple of things not called out in this slide, but I already highlighted, right? The other thing is, in addition to this, you're also going to do the readiness assessment of your entire data landscape, right? For example, I'll just quickly call out like let's say you have a SharePoint, right? So whether all the data is really labeled, right, with correct or with the right taxonomy within your organization, right? So because the Copilot or other ecosystem or any AI applications will honor that security, right? So in addition to this kind of a data side, you will follow the other assessment too, right? And if you look at on the step one, that's where Microsoft Fabric, like one leg, gonna help you kind of. I would say one leg is your end-to-end multi-cloud kind of a lake where you land all of the data, no matter where it is, like whether it's in a different clouds, but all of the data you integrate and kind of merge here in the one leg platform, right? It's kind of a OneDrive of kind of a data, actually, the way you do the OneDrive. And within the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem, you have other kind of a tool set, right, which will help you from a data pipelines or data engineering or kind of those aspects, whether you are coming from a SQL skill set, you are coming from a Spark or whatever skill set, right, all of that you can do within the step two. And then on step three, Fabric is heavily integrated with other AI technologies within the Microsoft ecosystem. It could be Azure AI kind of a foundry and other kind of a technology stack, right? So Fabric will be your knowledge base. If I talk about a little bit about agentic architecture, so Fabric will be your knowledge base, one of the knowledge base, I would say, right, when you are designing your kind of AI agents or copilots. Now, typically from a adoption standpoint, right, we what we are observing, like most of the workloads I have been engaged so far, right, and my team, right, um, I think most of the workloads are around the reporting workloads. Like we are seeing lot of migrations on the specific to reporting workloads. I would say that's the topmost, right? I think from the starting point, right? And the other one is like specific to warehouse. We are seeing a lot of migrations happening around the kind of a warehouse as well. And at the same time, I mentioned about the AI workloads like Fabric is kind of a knowledge base for your AI workloads, right? So you unify everything in the Fabric ecosystem. Specific to industry solutions, healthcare like really getting traction right now because I think about the healthcare data where you have a different set of data like DICOM or FHIR, a lot of different data sets, and it's very hard to get kind of insights out of it. You go through a lot of data ingestion processing framework, but within healthcare solutions, um, it's kind of help kind of optimizing that end-to-end workflow. So we are seeing a lot of customers kind of right now using or kind of analyzing the healthcare solutions. The other one is the ISV ecosystem, right? So a lot of customers right now, a lot of partners, I think they are integrating with ISVs, and Fabric is very open ecosystem where ISVs can kind of, do the integration with their product with the Fabric and, help customers actually. So we are seeing a lot of integrations like that. And on top of that, like real-time intelligence. So I think specific to airports and manufacturing and a lot of industries right now exploring kind of how we can leverage the real-time data, right, for end-to-end data analytics workflow, right? Now, not only kind of just ingesting or kind of doing that streaming of data, but if kind of a data scientist or other personas, if they want to start scoring kind of, or inferencing kind of, as soon as the data lands like in this real-time intelligence engine, so they can start that scoring or kind of whatever inferencing as soon as the data lands in Fabric ecosystem. And not only just scoring or kind of inferencing, but let's say you have data, you want to train your model as well, right? So along with that real-time data, you can the real-time intelligence, like it replicates data into the one lake, so you can train model as well. So yeah. So now here are the couple of kind of stats on the real-time intelligence specific. Of course, like Fabric is an end-to-end data analytics ecosystem, and it has a lot of different workloads. I think we have seen in the previous slide, but we are just kind of talking about only one kind of a workload in terms of stats, but you will hear more in kind of during the Fabric conference in Vegas, right? So, but I think a couple of them here, like if you look at from a the airports, like 30% kind of a performance efficiency, right? So you will see the different aspects of it. One is like a cost optimization is one of them, right? The other is your kind of a performance areas. And the other thing I really want to highlight is the simplified architecture, meaning when you think about this real-time ecosystem, right, one thing is getting data from your device sensors and kind of ingesting into the system. But at the same time, you do a lot of analytics on top of it, like you run machine learning models to do anomaly detection, right? So you do a lot of things on top of like generating the real-time dashboards. Now think about this when you use different tool set, right, for all of this work, then it's not gonna kind of, it's scalable, right? So the idea here is it's a simplified architecture where all of the work, whatever I mentioned, like whether it's ingestion, streaming, processing, as well as doing the anomaly detection, everything within a single unified ecosystem. So you are not kind of, again, spending too much cycle on the, technical stitching and other areas, right? Yes, I'll hand it off to Nandini.
Thank you, Prashant. So, till now in the session, we saw what challenges organizations are facing and how Fabric will be helping them, and what are the steps that you need to follow in order to create a roadmap that suits your organization. Like Prashant mentioned before, in most of the scenarios, organization must to do a full assessment of their current state, which again adds more challenges onto them to successfully complete the adoption. So, to avoid this, in the preparation and assessment phase, we would have two primary blocks of assessment. First one is the assessment of our data culture. Like Prashant mentioned in the previous slides about data culture, we have different areas within the data culture that needs to be evaluated. And first, we have the business alignment. And over here, we would kind of analyze how well the data culture and data strategy is actually enabling the business users to achieve their business objectives. And we also saw about executive sponsorship in the previous slides as well. To call out some of the most important areas over here, that would be data literacy, data discovery, and data democratization. Specifically in the data literacy area, you would be asking questions like how comfortable are people actually with making decisions based on data and evidence compared to intuition and subjective experience. And when you come into the data discovery area, you'll be asking questions like, are people using the appropriate sources and tools, or resisting them in favor of legacy ones? So, in the same pattern, we would be asking around 8 to 9 questions in each of these areas to assess to assess the organization fully and understand the current state. And based on the current state, we would also write down the future state goals against each of these areas where we want to go towards. So once we have the data culture assessment completed, we will be moving on into the technical area assessment. But before that, we look at like a small example on how we'll assess specific to the business alignment area. So let's consider we have a logistics company and we are assessing them in the business alignment area. So during this assessment, we find that we have three primary operational departments, let's say transportation, warehousing, and customer services. And this is the most common scenario that we've already seen in most of our clients, where the transportation team or team one would be focusing on their own deliverable or their own business focus area or goals. Let's say for transportation team, it's going to be optimizing delivery routes using GPS data, while the warehousing team focusing on inventory levels using a separate system. And based on request, these departments would be raising a IT ticket to request the following information from IT team. So from this scenario, what we can actually observe is that each of their departments have their own set of insights and priorities, and that is not commonly being discussed anywhere. And they also try to focus on the immediate needs right now rather than focusing on the long term plan to be strategically using the data to gain business insights. So based on these evaluation points, we can confirm or finalize that we are in the level 200 in terms of business alignment. And let's say our future goal is to get to level 400, which is efficient. And in order for them to reach this level, they need to follow certain steps and they need to create a unified data strategy plan that aligns with the business goals. And they need to have continuous monthly or quarterly meetings with the same group of people to ensure that any changes in the business objectives are reflected in the data strategy. And when all the teams come together to discuss and form the strategy, we have the correct set of priorities that also align with the business. And as a result, this organization would have a clearly defined strategy along with a fixed set of reports that would also include both route optimization and inventory insights. And they can combine this to form a consolidated dashboard to provide a single view to their users. Once we have the data culture assessment ready, we would go through the technical area assessment, and these areas are already known by most of the organizations. And some key areas that we can highlight over here that is mostly missed is the data loss prevention and the data quality and the master data management, which is most of the time deprioritized, but we also need to prioritize these areas to make sure the assessment is fully done. And once we complete both of these assessments, we'll have a clear picture of where we are right now and where we need to move towards. So based on the assessment, we would start off with our planning. And we usually most of the companies, what they do is they start off with a direct solution planning instead of focusing on the actual strategy to execute the plan. So in order to ensure that the initiatives are well structured and prioritized, we need to start off with a tactical plan, which is followed by a solution plan. So in the first state, we'll be checking the readiness and priorities that we've already listed, and we'll be setting our priorities over here. And we usually focus on urgent tasks and we try to prioritize them. And we also aim for quick wins and high impact activities in the first phase to make sure that we're showing immediate value over there. And the second phase in planning is key results, where we need to set key results and KPIs to track our progress. We also look at key results in three main areas, which is important, like adoption, governance, and implementation. And the third part is about defining the solution and initiatives. We need to support our key results while also meeting our business data needs. So, at the final part, we would be revising our plans based on feedback from users and peers and any changes in the technologies. To make sure we are adapting to all these changes and feedbacks, we usually schedule meetings to make sure we are revising our tactical plan and we are updating our project plan based on these changes. So in the solution plan, the first phase would be requirement gathering and planning. And in this phase, we'll gather both the business and technical requirements. And once we have the requirements in place, we'll start off by implementing a proof of concept first to make sure the adoption is fully successful. And once we complete the POC, we start off to create and validate the full content. And then we close it by deploying and then we close it by deploying and supporting the adoption fully so that it is usable in the upcoming days. So once the plan is completed and the implementation is fully successful, we have to make sure we are monitoring the environment and the data properly so that the solution stays effective. And over here, we have 5 ready-to-use monitoring options that is already available in Fabric. First one is the admin monitoring workspace that is right now in preview. And this will provide you a centralized location for administrators to monitor various aspects of the system. And the second one is the Fabric Monitoring Hub, which offers like a comprehensive view of the system performance and the health. Audit logs is going to be your usual audit logs where you track the user activities and the system events. And we have a new report from Fabric, which is called the Feature Usage and Adoption Report, which provides you an understanding of how different features that we discussed previously are being utilized. And this can help you identify which features are popular among the users and which ones may need more attention or improvement. And finally, we have the warehouse monitoring tool in place, which helps you monitor the query activity and insights as well. So once we have completed the implementation, it is crucial to stay updated and improve on top of what we have. So for that, we recommend looking at the Microsoft Fabric blogs. And this is a valuable resource to keep an eye on latest news, updates, and insights directly from the Microsoft Fabric team itself. And we have the Microsoft Fabric documentation. So this provides like a comprehensive resource on how to use Fabric, including guides, tutorials, and reference materials. And we have a very friendly Microsoft Fabric community where you can actually post your questions and get responses directly from experts and other users of Fabric software. So the last one is Fabric on social media. They regularly post updates on LinkedIn and X about their recent announcements, and we can also follow that to make sure we are updated.
All right. I appreciate it, both of you. So as far as questions, I did something a little different this time, and I reached out to everybody that was registered just because I know sometimes people can't attend. So I asked for any questions that they might have for the presenters, and I actually got a handful of questions back. So I'm going to go through those questions. That way the people that weren't able to attend can at least watch the recording and know that we did actually answer their questions. So I'm going to start with some of the easy ones, and then there's two that I think are a little more complex. So the first one is, what are some type of general deployment limitations to keep in mind?
I'm sorry, Chuck, can you come again? What are
Yeah,
the general?
or what are some general deployment limitations to keep in mind?
So from the deployment aspects, I wouldn't say we have specific limitations with regards to Fabric, but I would suggest you consider the different type of patterns before you set up your deployment. So we have the monolithic deployment, we have the uh, single workspace, a single capacity deployment, and we also have multiple workspace, multiple capacity deployments. And the deployment pattern over here is crucial because it would affect how well you can collaborate with your peers, and it would also define how you can share and restrict information based on the compliance or regulatory needs that the organization may.
Okay. So the next two questions are kind of related, ironically, from two different people. So the first one, can I connect to a repository that's in a different region than my workspace?
I think I need to do a little bit more research on the documentation on that. I'll respond back directly to the person.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second question being related to the same thing, which we would probably have to get back, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So this person says, say I have capacity B in region B talking to a source sitting in my home tenant in region A, do I incur networking charges?
So if it's cross region, you wouldn't have additional charges in the first place, but I think there's a limit to how much you can use for free at the initial state, and then you would incur a small charge after that.
All right. Um, so the last one that I have here was a long question, but I'm going to shorten it to the point of the. So it says, where does Azure / Synapse end and Fabric begin?
That's interesting question. I can take that. So I think as of today, I think a lot of customers ask that question, but I think based on our internal product team direction, I think we have a blog on this, like specific to this like question. So as of today, we don't have any plan to end or retire anything on the Synapse side because a lot of customers already leveraging Synapse, right? And we will continue to support as we speak right now. If any direction changes, then I think we will have a separate announcement or blog or anything on that. Yeah.
Okay. And actually related to that, there's a sub question to it. So I have some views that exist in Synapse Workspace, and I want to create a shortcut in Fabric to pull these views. Is this possible?
So depends on the views. Like I don't know. Right now, like we don't have any plan to kind of a shortcut between Synapse and the Fabric, right? But we do have other capabilities, like kind of a, let's say if it's a pipelines, then mounting is one of them, right? And for warehousing, we are coming up with the a migration assistant and other things, right? So those capabilities are coming in terms of, but there is no. I get this question all the time whether mirroring or shortcut will be available for Synapse to Fabric. So there is no plan for mirroring or shortcut from Fabric actually, from Synapse to Fabric.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my own question on top of that. So if that's the case, right? So somebody asking that you had mentioned, right? You get that question all the time. What is
Mhm.
your recommendation for people that are looking for something like that? Like, what would you suggest they do since that capability isn't available?
So it depends, like if it's a migration scenario, for example, right? Then we are kind of, working with a handful of partners. It's in private preview, right? So things will roll out in terms of migration, like migration assistant is one of them, right? And then other than that, depends on we do have a lot of kind of, I would say, data pipeline connectors, right? So that will help kind of getting data from Synapse to Fabric as well, right? So they can leverage the data pipelines actually.
All right. So that was all the questions that I had for you all. For me, um, I just wanted to thank both of you for all of the content today, and again, a final thank you to everyone who attended. And as a reminder for the attendees, do not forget to check out all of our great content that we have coming up across the entire Microsoft ecosystem. And if you really like today's content and you want to hear more about Fabric, we have another one of these. Our next featured Fabric Friday is in 2 weeks from now. Prashant will also be joining us for that one. So we'd be happy to have you back, and don't forget to tell your friends. I'm just kidding. But again, thank you, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah.